All right, what's going on, guys? So, today, as you can see on our agenda, what we're going to be talking about is the four theories of how government has come to exist, right? So, as we get into this, we talked about the importance of government. Why do we have it? What is the responsibility of government to citizens? What is the citizens' responsibility to the government? Well, today we're going to talk about how does power come about? Okay, so as we jump in, don't worry about the schedule at the bottom. You guys know when things are going to be due. All right, that's on the board. But government foundations, here we go, chapter one. As we talk about power, where does power come from? Who is going to take power? How are they going to take power? Why would people listen to them? Why would I follow this person over that person? These are all good questions that we're going to see as we go throughout the semester or the year and talk about why important it is with people with power and different theories of how power came about. Who has the power in our government, which is a great question. All right, so as we move on, what is this symbol right here on this shirt? Well, if you don't know, that is the symbol of anarchy, right? So as I put you in the scenario the other day in class, as we talked about, what happens. This is actually the scenario right here. Your dream come true. All the adults get kicked out of Oak Hills High School. The students get locked inside. They cannot leave. We're going to send you food up into the commons. All right, so then without any adult supervision and no one's enforcing the school rules, the population explodes. Anarchy reigns, right? So this happens. And then you guys as groups, or I had you individually, think about and then talk about what would happen to the school. Lunchtime comes soon. People start to migrate into the commons. What's going to happen, right? So as we talked about, as soon as this happened, anarchy will explode. But anarchy cannot exist for long periods of time. And the question is why? Why doesn't it? Right? So we've always had all kind of riots in the past, right, throughout history. Riots happen here, riots happen here. But they don't last forever. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you, it's human nature, right? So we don't want the chaos to ensue. History has showed us that anarchy does not exist for long periods of time because we want structure, we want order, we want discipline. That's what human beings want, right? We crave structure and discipline, believe it or not. Everybody does, believe it or not. So we're like, oh, I know. Yeah, you do. Right? So anarchy cannot exist for long periods of time because we as human beings, we won't let it, right? So as we look at and we start to think about anarchy and what happens, how does one take power? So again, there's four theories in which power comes to be, or how people obtain power in a government structure. So the first one is the force theory. This is where you can see on here, might makes right. So this is where people tend to use a force of arms or a force of minds to easily create autocracies, right? I have the power. Is it the power of the sword? I have the military in my pocket. I have, all these people behind me. So therefore, you're going to listen to me, right? And is that why people follow? So, a lot of times this happens in dictatorships. Certain countries around the world have dictatorships, like we've seen throughout history, especially in the 1930s. What's happening in Cuba, North Korea, all examples of dictators, right? Is where they take power by using force, using might, right? Overthrow the people in power, you get the power. Now the people will follow you. So that's pretty much how the force theory comes to be. So that's the that's the first one. The second one, evolutionary theory. This theory is going to argue that a nation state is a natural extension of a family origin. It's just bigger. So, what happens is it usually starts like an area, starts out as a family, and then as more people join, the family grows, people come together, then they form like a tribe, then they get to a clan, then eventually it continues to grow and it builds up to the village, and then, from a village it extends to a province, and until it goes all the way up to a nation. So, you see in the picture here, that's a picture of Native Americans. That's what happened in a lot of the different tribes that took over this area in North America. They had their own little nation states and all that going on. And then the settlers came over and developed, and then we formed our new nation with 13 colonies. So it does happen. Basically, this theory says that nation states are going to evolve over time. They're going to start small, and then they're going to grow. Another current example of that is Saudi Arabia, right? So you might not know this, but Arabia means the land of, and the Saudi is the last name of a family. So when you hear Saudi Arabia, that kind of evolved out of the Saudi family over time, as they controlled that land in that area in the Middle East and eventually formed that country. So again, Saudi Arabia, land of the Saudis. So that's an example of like growing into a nation having power over time. The third theory, I don't know if you remember all the way back to world history, where you have the divine right theory. And this was right before the Enlightenment, long time in European history, 1300s, 1400s, around that time, even further closer to the 1700s. England still has a monarch. But during this time, the kings would rule because, they were a god king. They used religion to say, hey, this is why I'm here. Like, God put my father in power to rule, so therefore I am his son, so you must listen to me because God put me here to rule through, our family line. So, that divine right theory.
Bobby Hutchinson, if you're in the building, who's called front office.
So it uses religion and concept as a God king. God put me here to rule, so therefore you must follow me, right? And listen to everything I say, because if you disobey me, you are disobeying God, right? So that was a theory, long time happening in Europe. And then we had the Enlightenment hit. Once the Enlightenment hit, all these gentlemen, all these scholars, even women were involved in this. They came up with, different ways to rule based off of like ancient times, like ancient Greece, Rome, when they had democracies and republics. But this next theory that we're going to see, theory of power, the fourth one and last one, is the social contract theory, right? This theory comes from none other than the man, John Locke. So John Locke basically says that we give up unlimited freedom. Like, we are born free. We are this tabula rasa, this blank slate with unlimited freedoms. But at the same time, we crave structure. We want discipline. So therefore, in order to get that, we have to give up some of these powers and these freedoms that we have to get more important rights protected by the government. So, like, we enter this contract like, hey, government, we're going to give up freedom, but in return, you're going to give us protection, structure, discipline, order. So, you want to live and live safe. And how are you going to do that? Well, you come into a social contract with the government. So as you look at John Locke, he was the one that came up with this. Good looking dude, right? Who looks better, John Locke or Mr. Funk? Don't answer that question, but don't lie. Don't answer that question. Anyway, this is built on a premise of limited government, right? The government is going to get the power from the people because of this social contract, right? So we're willing to give up this power and give it to you. But then at the same time, as we give up this power and give it to you, you need to protect us. And if we don't like what you're doing, then we have the right to overthrow you, right? So if you violate this social contract, we're taking power back, and then we'll set up a government that will keep our power. So, there it is. How do I look? How do I stack up? Anyway, so he became the prominent influence on the Declaration of Independence, which we will be looking at that document later. And obviously, we're going to analyze the Constitution all year long, but we're definitely going to hit it more in Chapter 2. Again, like I said before, he advocated that humans were born as tabula rasas. We were blank slates, right? So he was the first one that came up with the social contract theory, which today we believe firmly in our government, which you will see as we look at documents moving forward. He has all types of influence in the documents, again, which we will analyze at a later date time. So this will conclude our rendition of 4 theories of power. If you have any questions, please email me, let me know. All right, or we can talk about it in class. All right, so you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later.